Hey everybody, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I am Justin, the lovable rogue.
I'm Nico, the chef.
And I am Dan, the faceless spirit.
And we're doing a DOTD first here on the podcast. We're going to be reviewing our first ever series. And, where better to start than, Netflix has jacked up their prices, guys. We better get our money's worth out of this.
Please sponsor us.
Hopefully. In my dreams. So today we're going to be talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor. This series, it's starring a bunch of people from the previous series, yeah. Hill House. So this was directed by Mike Flanagan, and it's starring Victoria Pedretti as Danny Clayton. We've got Oliver Jackson Cohen as Peter Quinn, Amelia Eve as Jamie, Tania Miller as Hannah Gross, Rahul Kohli as Owen. We've got Tahira Sharif as Rebecca Giselle, Amelia Bia Smith as Flora, and closing up our list here is Benjamin Evan Ainsworth as Miles. So this series really starts off with, there's a wedding, but it's like a pre-wedding reception. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So, she kind of at like a little gathering, she says that she has a ghost story to tell the people, and everyone's like, all right, we got time to burn. So she begins. So her story starts...
It's a long fucking story.
Yes, it is. Her story starts with Danny. She's an American in London, but not a werewolf. She answers an ad to be
She's
an
an
au
American,
pair.
not in a werewolf.
Right. So she's going to be an au pair, which is, kind of fancy for a governess, right?
Yeah.
And she answers an ad for 2 children staying at Bly Manor. She ends up getting the job, and, she meets the children, who are perfectly splendid, along with Hannah, the housekeeper, and Owen, the chef. But, what kind of happens after that, Nico?
So after that, the series continues, and we are introduced to Flora and Miles, the 2 children, as well as Jamie, the gardener. We find out that Rebecca is a former au pair as well, who used to work there. She fell into a relationship with Peter Quinn, a charming yet deceitful person. But he left abruptly, and after a period of mourning, she was found dead in the lake outside the manor with the candlestick. Mr. Colonel Mustard did it, certainly.
That's not all. Dan, what happens after that?
So as we continue on with the show, supernatural things start to happen. Danny is haunted by the spirit of her former fiancé, and she kind of overcomes that and her fear of him, and ends up kind of having a budding relationship with Jamie, the gardener. And after a while, we learn that Peter never actually left the house. He was actually murdered by the lady in the lake, who is a spirit who kind of like is trapped on the grounds of Bly Manor, and she just kind of wanders the house at night. So after Peter was killed by her, his spirit is also trapped on the grounds of Bly Manor. And we kind of learn that anybody who dies on the grounds is unable to pass to the afterlife and is trapped and cannot leave Bly Manor.
So we have Peter and Rebecca, both now ghosts, and they begin to carry out a plan that Peter has to escape from the grounds. So Peter's plan is basically that they will Peter and Rebecca will respectively possess Miles and Flora. And, his plans are kind of hastened by the presence of Danny, who her just being there and being an attentive person, she kind of has to, she makes the plans have to go faster. So he, being Peter, possesses Miles, but Danny manages to grab Flora and run out of the house. But they don't make it too far, do they, Dan?
No, they get right outside, and the lady of the lake is walking around and ends up just grabbing Danny and starts kind of dragging her into the lake, and eventually lets go of her, and the lady in the lake actually grabs Flora and attempts to take the little kid Flora into the lake. And then they kind of try to do another swaparoo, and Danny ends up accepting the lady of the lake into her own body, kind of spiritual possession here a little bit. And in the process of doing that, she ends up destroying the curse, ending the curse, and dispelling all the ghosts that haunt this house.
And that woman's whole career.
Well, she really did, but what happens afterwards, Nico? Because we pretty much have like an episode left. So what happens in that last episode?
Right. So we are then treated to an epilogue where Danny and Jamie move to America and start a life together, have a relationship. And Danny is unfortunately still haunted by the presence of the lady in the lake that just grows more hostile over time. She ends up finally going back to Bly Manor, unable to take it, and just dying and taking the place of the Lady in the Lake, but she won't hurt anyone ever again. We now flash back to the beginning and realize that our narrator was Jamie, and she is at Flora's wedding. After the reception, she goes back to her hotel and waits for Danny. And at the very end, we see Danny's hand over her shoulder.
All right, so let's go ahead now and let's break it down like we normally do. So, audio and visuals. I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Nico. How do you feel about the visuals for this series?
I love them. The costumes were incredible. The lady in the lake was fucking terrifying, and just the way that the scenes were set up, the cinematography alone was really good. And in particular, and I'll get to this later, the first episode had a ton of vibes from Hitchcock and Ari Aster in particular. I was just really impressed with the visuals in this series.
All right, Dan, your thoughts?
I pretty much agree. I really like the visual aspect of the show. Very crisp, clean, great shots, great cinematography, great lighting as well.
Oh my God, so good. They do night incredibly well in this.
Yeah. And if we're talking about it, the music I thought was great too. I loved the score.
That theme's a banger, yo.
Yeah, and got to give a shout out to the Newton brothers, who are the guys behind the
Exactly.
score.
Shout outs to the Newton brothers.
They killed it. The music was one of my favorite parts about the show.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, just, Dan already said it, so I'm gonna have to say it again. I liked the audio in this. I dug it. And I also dug the visuals, and this is kind of something that at this point in time, Netflix is known for. Pretty much anything that's like a Netflix original that they come out with, it's almost bound to have some pretty fly, cinematography.
Great production value all around, yeah.
Yeah, it always consistently has high production value. I mean, you would have to say that, Netflix is really starting to match up with some actual Hollywood level production.
Fucking blockbusters, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think that's pretty dope. But Nico, you haven't really commented on the audio as yet. I mean, you feeling what Dan said?
Yeah, and this is something that we will, again, talk about it later, but I'll give you a little bit of a preview. I also really love the way that certain songs are thematically and narratively important in the show. And it's not cheesy, I think, and it's just done really, really well. Besides that, the scare factor from all of the ghosts and shit, it's great. It's suitably scary.
Asterisk. We'll come back to that. So,
all right, we're going to fucking war, I guess.
And guess what? Going to war right now. What genre? Because we have to say this. I've watched the trailer back, and there was a couple trailers out there for this. So, given the previous Haunting, if you will, series,
which is
the
absolutely horror.
The Haunting of Hill House, which is certainly horror. A lot of people assumed that this one was going to be another kind of real scary horror, kind of thing. And the trailer, at least a little bit, does also seem to impart that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to our correspondent on the scene. Dan, what do you say here? What category is this? Is this horror?
I don't think it's horror. It's, in my opinion, it's drama / mystery / horror, in that order. It's, and I guess romance, but romance to me is kind of put into the drama category, I think. I mean, it's very predominantly a drama. There's a lot of story behind all the characters. And yes, there's definitely horror aspects of it, but I guess to me it's a drama that has a horror backdrop to it, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I can't really classify this as a horror.
Okay. We're going to go now to the chef, Nico. What do you think?
I would say that this is horror. I think that it is just a little less intention, and you might think to clown on me for this, but it is a little less intentionally overtly scary. It's much more, like you were saying, Dan, it's kind of like the backdrop, but I don't think that takes away from it. I argue that there's a lot of build-up in the show, which I'm sure my co-hosts are going to disagree to this, and it makes for a scare payoff that while you don't have them in nearly as much frequency as Hill House, they're still pretty quality.
So I'm going to go ahead and, Nico, I'm going to put on my glove and shake your hand like a gentleman.
Oh, okay.
And shake your hand, gentleman, virtual handshake.
Okay.
And then we're going to turn around and take 6 paces.
Okay.
And I'm going to shoot you with these facts. Because listen.
This is the episode. Okay. All right.
All right.
Just fuck me in particular.
Well, yes, because Dan agrees with me.
Pretty much.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna say this. And by the way, for the audience, imagine like like an old school like WWF matchup. Like it's the Heartbreak Kid Nico, and basically, he's on a 2-on-1 match, and it's Kane and the Undertaker. Dan is Kane, and I'm the Undertaker. We're coming through to mess your shit up, Shawn Michaels. So, anyways,
Why do I gotta be Shawn Michaels, bro?
So, I don't think this is horror. I think this is, and I've said this before, but I think parts of this have a kind of gothic feel to it. It's in an old mansion.
It is a gothic story, straight up.
And like, I don't really take that as horror. I don't really consider, there was, for me personally, barely any true moments of horror in it. And
You're right.
I feel like any horror that's built up is diluted so much.
Yes.
It's to the point where it's like, oh man, that happened. Now let me strap back in for some more monologuing. But we'll get to that. See you laugh. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I mean, for what I think the genres are, I would say that this is first and foremost a drama.
I would also agree with that.
Definitely a drama first and foremost. There is an element of mystery to it. I will say that. Although, I mean, speaking for me, I drink mysteries like I drink water.
Oh.
Straight from the bottle.
What?
Hashtag Dare Park sponsor. So, I mean, like,
You couldn't get a better bottled water company? Evian? Come on, bro.
bro, what you talking about, man? Evian is straight from the sink. Everybody knows I'm drinking that deer piss, bro.
No, bro. Deer
drinking
Park
that
is
deer
some
piss.
trash. Deer
What?
Park is some fucking trash. Evian is superior. You know
Nah.
this.
We're gonna have a bonus episode about water, dog. Well, more on this on the bonus episode, okay? But no, I would say it's got some mystery to it, but not really a ton for me. And then it also kind of has, I guess it tries.
I'm sorry, I was thinking Aquafina. Aquafina is the tap. Deer Park is good.
Yeah, because you didn't want me. I was gonna come in with all 32 ounces of my knowledge, dog.
What?
But no, so Liquid Fury. So, but no, I mean, yeah, I think for me, the romance, now this is interesting because I kind of feel like I wanted more romance if they were going to characterize this as a gothic romance. I wanted more personally. I think they could have done
I find
more.
that surprising.
I think
Yeah.
one reason why I don't classify it as horror is because I think we learned too much about all the characters.
Interesting.
All of the scary things, or the things that are supposed to be scary, I learned too much about them.
Do you think that's because it's a miniseries?
No.
Nah.
See, I disagree, but go
Like
on.
the Lady of the Lake, right? We don't really know anything about her the entire show until the second to last episode, where we get the entire episode of backstory on her. And I didn't want to know that much about her. All you had to tell me was she was this lady who lived here 200 years ago, and she misses her kid and walks the house at night trying to find her kid. Okay, cool.
That episode's a fucking masterpiece. How dare you?
All right, hold on. Ding, ding, ding. The ref rings the bell for the end of the round. We're going to get to this. But first, before we
Fucking
get there,
dare you.
I mean, hey, listen. It's kind of like right now, it's like watching Rocky and Ivan Drago, okay?
Yeah, well,
And-
you two are fucked because I have God and anime on my side.
I mean, all right, calm down. So I'm going to say, we're going to get to this. Everyone go back to your corner. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying? Take your
okay.
little squirt of water. And let me pose this question to you, Nico.
That's your unit of measurement.
Little squirt.
That's what you do when you're in like a boxing match.
Glug,
You know,
drink,
your
sip, my guy.
your corner squirts the water in your mouth.
I mean, he's right.
I'm upset.
All right. So speaking of upset, what are some of the themes in this? I mean, I think one theme that's very clear is kind of the concept of kind of the patriarchy, really.
You think so?
Is a massive theme in this. I think when we're first introduced to Rebecca, she talks about how the whole reason why she even takes the job as an au pair is to kind of help circumvent the fact, as she says, perverted old men with their hands up her skirt. She wants to find a way around that. And her way around that is through this, getting to know the family. And then from there, kind of trying to take an apprenticeship. That's kind of her stance and her viewpoint. And it's pretty much stated multiple times. I mean, for a lot of the characters in this movie, men are directly responsible for a lot of the trauma they face. So I think that is a pretty constant theme throughout. I was going to say, sometimes I kind of got the feeling from this series that it almost at times kind of feels like, the men are all bad, because up to a certain point, The only good guy was Owen. Every other dude was a piece of shit in this series.
Yeah.
But then episodes 8 and 9 happened.
And Owen was still a beautiful angel baby.
So that was one theme I thought of. But Nico, can you think of any other themes that were present in this?
Most certainly, my good man.
That's why I came to you, bro.
Thank you.
Pause. Major
Jesus
pause.
Christ.
Here we are at the end of days. No. So, this is, like everyone has said so far, a gothic story, first and foremost. If I could, go beyond genre into subgenre, this oozes gothic. And to those of you not specifically familiar with what is becoming of a gothic story, it usually involves, or it archetypically involves a family that has some sort of secrets, like secrets that go deep within the family lineage, like back and back and back, and it's almost toxic to the point that the dirty laundry that they have is its own character. And this often is personified through the setting that they're in, usually some sort of estate in the countryside or, the house that they're in. And in this case, it's the grounds at Bly Manor. So it is just 100% a gothic story, just even beyond the nature of genre into just like what kind of beginning, middle, and end story are we getting into here?
Dan, how about from your end? Can you conjure up any kind of tropes or themes?
Would you consider one of the themes to be hope?
Yeah.
Yes, I
absolutely.
certainly would.
Yeah, because I just was thinking about that, because especially near the end, when we kind of put two and two together that the narrator is Jamie, we kind of see that she is like always waiting for Danny to come back. Even though Danny is dead, she like leaves a door
She's
cracked
like
open.
dead.
Yeah.
She like keeps coming back to life.
Turbo dead.
To be dead.
That's true.
She's pretty dead.
Yeah, she's real dead. But Jamie is always like waiting for that, hoping one day that Danny will be back. And I think that there's a couple other characters that are also maybe not quite as outright in your face hopeful as that. But yeah, Flora definitely is as well. Absolutely. So I think hope is one of the themes in this one too.
All right. But speaking of hope, Shawn
I wish and hope a
Michaels.
motherfucker would.
Oh,
Shawn Michaels, it's the dead man here, and you have none. That's right. It's time for us to talk about the last 2 episodes. Buckle up,
Fucking
bitch.
go, you
Let's go. This is for the tag team championship and the heavyweight championship. Somehow you had both titles. Somehow you had both. But let's go. We're about to take them away from you. All right. So real quick,
Fucking bring it.
I'm bringing it, bro. I'm bringing it on. As a matter of fact.
Too much.
So, you guys, come on. That was a good movie, right? So, anyways, let's go. So, in my opinion, I attempt to prove in this thesis
in this essay, I will.
Episode 8 is perhaps one of the greatest momentum killers in any form of media I've ever seen. Let's go ahead and take a look back to what's happening in episode 7 real quick. Episode 7, we see Rebecca and Peter, and, they're about to possess the kids. Danny gets snatched by the lady in the lake. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is a monologue and backstory from something about 200 years ago to basically get to the answer of who is the lady in the lake. So much like Dan said earlier,
So much more than that.
it could have been, well, what else happened in that backstory? Answer me
I'll
that.
let you finish your piece.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you
That's what I
finish,
expect.
but-
you gotta let me connect with my finisher, and then you kick out. That's how this works.
I'm sorry.
Yes. So we see the whole backstory about Viola. She's the lady of Bly Manor.
Viola.
I'm sorry, Viola. So Viola is the lady of Bly
Wow,
Manor.
fuck me.
And she, she's intelligent, she's driven, and, she actually, in kind of a cool way, sets up her own arranged marriage. Not really an arranged marriage. She sets up her own marriage to, a nice guy who is, by the way, the first actually, morally good dude aside from Owen in the entire series.
Yeah.
And so she does all that, but unfortunately, she gets sick. And while she does not get the plague, what does she get,
great
Dan?
value plague.
She gets the lung.
Which is essentially the fucking plague. So she gets the plague, and I think it was for 5 years or something like that. She sticks around.
I think it was 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, and her husband is completely loyal to her at this point in time, and everything's going on, but she eventually dies, and because her sister kills her, which unfortunate. And then her sister also attempts to, I guess, take her inheritance away that she was originally leaving for her daughter, but her sister tries to take it and she murks her sister. And then we kind of get her backstory. All of that, in my opinion, could have been avoided. I don't know, like I just didn't like it. And it tells too much. Like one of the worst things you can do, and for example, let's go ahead and take a look back at Michael Myers. All we know about Michael Myers is he's a sick fuck. Like, that's what we know about Michael Myers.
Yeah,
like,
fuck Austin Powers.
you know, like Dr. Loomis hypes him up and he's like, he's cutting a promo basically. He's like, he's the evilest, baddest man. And when he comes to the ring tonight, literally,
He will
he's over
water
here
your
like,
plants.
he's over here hyping up his entrance. But he doesn't really say like, you know, too much about the person of Michael Myers. He just hypes up how evil he fucking is. And I think that for this woman, you know, we see her as a person, we see her cry, we know why she's doing it. Like they go well far and above to go through all of it. And it completely kills the drive and the momentum they built up from the previous episode, which I'm not a fan of. That's my take on episode 8. Now we're gonna go with Dan. If you have any additional qualms or if you have some different qualms from me, let's hear those now, sir. I'm gonna tag and it's your turn.
That about sums it up for me. I mean, the momentum killing, because like you said, like the previous episode was in episode 8, the one we're talking about is the penultimate episode. So it's like you know, supposed to be building up. So the previous episode really should have been the penultimate episode, and it wasn't. We got a whole episode of just completely, I don't want to say unrelated because it is related, but it's just breaks everything, like completely kills the momentum for me. And then I personally didn't want to know that much about the Lady of the Lake, that spirit. Like I just love that she's just there wrecking people's shit when they get in her way. That's it. Like I would have enjoyed maybe a 5 or 10 minute explanation on who she is, that she's a, you know, somebody from a couple hundred years ago, like I said before, but I now know too much about her and she's not scary to me anymore. Like,
You know what it was
I know
almost
too
like?
much.
It was almost like, remember in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island? Like when they talked about Morgan Moonscar, they didn't like dedicate 20 minutes to telling me the intricacies of his pirate crew.
They also
like,
have a fucking mini-series for Zombie Island.
Right, but at the same time, like they got him over quick. They were like, yeah, Morgan Moonscar came through. He was an evil ass pirate. The end.
Again, they had like 10 times less the runtime.
Yeah, but hold on. But they are the ones who decided their runtime, Nico. Like, this is a Netflix miniseries. It's not like a standard TV show where you have to fulfill a certain number of episodes.
I recognize that. I'm just saying you shouldn't expect that level of literally an hour worth of just backstory in a regular movie.
No. I guess what I'm saying is they didn't have to spend that long on their villain, and I guess I would have kind of liked a shorter, perhaps less detailed explanation of the evil and terror, because I think over explanation of evil sometimes diminishes it. But so you know, Nico, aka Shawn Michaels, has just eaten a choke slam. He kicks out and he's revving up sweet chin music. So Nico, go ahead and tell us your thoughts, sir, on episode 8.
All right, episode 8 is a fucking masterpiece, and you two should be fucking grateful that you got to be alive in this earth to watch it.
Wow.
When we were talking about how this is a gothic show, that was just oh my God, chef's kiss, c'est magnifique, très bon. It was so good, gothic, just oozing everywhere. You're talking about not wanting to get too much information. You get to see the exact trauma that haunts the house and curses the entire area, and down to the relationships that started the entire curse of the grounds. It's fantastic, and you see so many parallels to the exact lives that are occurring in the future. Just as there's infidelity, just as there's, like dealings with, children, just as there is dealings with, frankly, all of the character drama and the relationships that were portrayed in that episode are analogs of the relationships that are made in the first 7 episodes. So it's a pretty damn near direct parallel on top of being much more overt explanation, yes. And I will admit that is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I have a fucking master's in literature. Of course I'm going to gobble this shit up. It's like crap
Gobble
to
it
me. Yeah. So that's episode 8. Episode 9 is, oh my God. I loved the last episode. And the one thing that I will say to the show's credit, in particular with a nod to Mike Flanagan for coming up with this, I feel like, although I don't know if he wrote. Anyway, I love that it's kind of self-aware that it is a love story of sorts. There's a lot of, different sort of character romances throughout, and being able to end it on a note of just the reveal that the storyteller was Jamie. I just lost my shit bawling at that at the end when she opened the door. Oh my God. It was a beautiful closure to a story to have all of that wrap up so just wonderfully across time, and see how the development of Danny being haunted by Viola went and the repercussions of that. And oh my God, I adored it. Now just go take a shit on everything I love.
Real quick, before I do that, I do want to say I made an error at the start. So the series itself as a whole, so Mike Flanagan is kind of the creator of this, and he did direct the first episode, but there was actually a ton of directors in this one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was like Ciaran Foy, Liam
shit.
Gavin, E.L. Katz, Axel Carolyn. So there was a whole bunch of directors, because I something clicked in my head real quick. So yeah, there was a ton of
good on you for
writers and directors in this, because Laurie Penny, they wrote, that episode. All right, so Nico, so in response to what you've said for the
My love
episode
letter.
9, so it was interesting to me because episode 9 seemed to be, I think the conflict is resolved within the first 15, 20 minutes maybe
No, it's not.
Yeah.
of the episode.
No, it's not.
Well, I'm talking on the grounds of Bly Manor.
Danny. I apologize. Yes.
Danny accepts the ghost into her within the first 15 or so, 15, 20 minutes of it. And then we're given the epilogue.
The overarching plot. Yes, I apologize.
So in my opinion, I kind of felt like the epilogue lasted a little bit too long. I don't know. I thought it lasted a little bit too long. It also kind of felt like, to me personally, I felt like some of the romance that I wanted more of in the series, this is where it came in pretty strongly, but I would have preferred to have, I guess, gotten it spread out more throughout the series. I would have also liked, because the epilogue, I kind of felt like the conflict was over too quick for me. I mean, one character we never really mentioned too much was Henry. He's the uncle of
Uncle, yeah.
Well, he's technically Flora's dad, but he's the uncle of Flora and Miles. And I mean, he spends a whole episode hyping himself up to come out to Bly Manor, comes out to Bly Manor, gets choked out by the ghost in 10 seconds. That's it. That's his crowning achievement.
Funny,
and I'm just like, bro, why? What was the point? You should have just stayed in your office. There was literally no point in hyping him and having him drive out. Peter's plan, we never even find out what the fuck it was all about. All we get to see is Peter, I'm so sorry, Miles. Boom, he's gone. It felt like there was buildup to different things in this, and it didn't pan out. And instead what we
Because
got...
they weren't playing with a full deck. Peter said he was sorry because he didn't know what was going on with the gravity well of the lady in the lake.
No, he totally knew about that.
No, he didn't. He didn't know the
Pretty
full
sure he did.
story, is what I'm saying.
I'm saying he didn't know the hour-long backstory, but he knew that people were trapped on the grounds when they died.
I don't think he knew to the extent that it was fully detailed, but we can just call that an agree to disagree.
Yeah, because he directly says about people forgetting them and the memories, and then they lose their faces. So he knew a lot because he spent some time.
He did
I don't
know
know.
a lot, yes.
I don't know if he was diving for answers literally in the lake or what, but he definitely heard it. So I felt like there was a lot of resolution that just we're done. Next plot, let's go. And then there was the epilogue, which I thought maybe lasted a bit long. But yeah, that's my take. And if I have to say it, I didn't necessarily like it being Flora's wedding at the end. I'ma just say it. I know that that's more personal, but I didn't necessarily like it. I thought it would have been cooler if she was telling a group of unrelated people. But that's my take. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, again, I pretty much agree with you. I think a lot of the buildups, like kind of what you're saying, like a lot of the buildups and the things that have been going on throughout the show and these character arcs and story arcs just didn't happen. They just failed at the end. And like, especially like what you said with Henry's thing, I really don't understand how Danny, when she's trying to save Flora from getting taken down to the water by the Lady of the Lake, Danny accepts, like when Peter and Rebecca try to possess the children, they have like a saying. They say like, it's you, it's me, it's us. And that's supposed to try to help focus the body and the spirit together to like fuse together, I guess, fusion ha kind of thing.
That's what activates the transference of their souls.
Right. And they make a big deal earlier on about the children have to want Peter and Rebecca to possess them. So now we get a scene where Danny says the same phrase, and the Lady of the Lake all of a sudden is like, you know what? Yeah, I want to be a part of you. But that has never, ever been part of the Lady of the Lake's character, ever. The Lady of the Lake, one, can't remember anything. The Lady of the Lake doesn't give a fuck about anybody else. She's just trying to find her kid, which she has in her hand, and she's trying to take her child back home. So the fact that the Lady of the Lake said, yes, I want to be part of this random ass person that I don't know, makes absolutely no sense to me at all. I thought that was sort of a slap to the face to me, especially because the Lady of the Lake was like such a badass character earlier.
That's what she said to her husband, though.
Is it?
What?
Like, she coined the phrase.
Oh, I must have missed that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, like, that's why it got her.
But why did she want to fuse with a random person? She can't even remember anything.
I think it's just that like activated that part
I mean,
of her.
I guess, I don't know. It still feels like, because they distinctly said she can't remember anything.
Oh, no, you're right. I think that just like woke something in her. We
I
can't
mean,
exactly go and ask her.
I can see it awakenings, whatever parts they're remembering, but I still don't know why she wants to fuse with somebody else.
I think it's much less of a want.
Her only motivation throughout the entire episode and like a good chunk of her flashback episode was her child.
I think it's just instinct at this point.
What I'm saying is her instinct is her child, not some rando.
Yeah.
So like I just don't quite understand that. I just felt like a lot of the last episode was just contrived and just kind of, oh, well, we're going to do this to finish this, and it didn't make any sense to me at all. Yeah.
Agreed. But yeah, so that was our take on the last two episodes. But I got to ask you guys, what would you do in this situation? So this is another one. So I'm going to put you guys in the position of characters. So first, Nico, I'm going to put you in the position of Owen the chef.
Okay.
So was there anything kind of throughout the series that Owen did that you would do differently?
I would have put the moves on Hannah Grows for sure.
Okay.
But apart from that, he was pretty just... He was never the direct cause or solution to any of the events at Bly. He was just kind of there. And by no means is he a bad character. He's a fantastic character. But he was kind of secondary, I would say. So I don't think I would do anything different. I think I would just be... I would go through it just as he did, frankly.
Okay. So Dan, I'm going to now put you into the shoes of... Dan, who do you want? Do you want Henry or do you want Miles?
I'll be Henry, I guess.
Okay, so Henry. So I'm not going to be able to erase what you've done in the past. So Henry still sleeps with his brother's wife, and you have Flora, because otherwise Flora wouldn't exist. So I had to make Flora exist.
Yeah.
But from the start of the series, what would you do differently? This is when you're hiring Danny. This is where you start from.
I wouldn't be a creep who just like calls the house and then like breathes into the phone like Michael Myers.
Fucking real shit.
I would definitely not do that. I understand why he did it and how he was like scared to talk to them and whatever and confront that. I get it, but yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would also probably, I feel like I would care more because like a lot of times Danny tries to call him when shit starts going wrong and he's like unavailable. He does not want to talk to them. And all he asks his secretary is anybody hurt? If no, then I don't want to talk to them. leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I feel like I wouldn't do that. I mean, if I truly cared about this girl who is my child, like I would want to know maybe not every little thing. And maybe like on the smaller things, I might be like, no, don't talk to me, feel that sort of self-resentment or whatever that he was feeling. But like when the au pair continually calls and like, yo, shit is going wrong, I feel like that's when I would step in and be like, okay, yeah.
Meet me down at Bly.
Right.
It's going
Alright.
down.
I mean, I think for me personally, so the person I'm going to put myself into is Peter. So I think, Peter he's a complex character, and I think he is the monster that everybody made him out to be after everyone made him out to be a monster. And so for the start, I would still totally be in a relationship with Rebecca. Absolutely.
That
Yes.
suck, bro.
Yes, confirmed by all. But I think the difference here is when I got insta-killed by the lady in the lake and I found my way to come back. I mean, you know what? I'm not even going to flip at the batter scene given his previous trauma. Like, I'm not even going to flip at that. But what I'm going to say is the whole kind of scene where like he agrees to like possess her and he's like going to eventually like kill her. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't have that in me. Instead, what I would be doing is I would tell her, I'd be like, yo, listen, there is like a fucking demon or something around this premises. You got to get out of here. And because here's the thing, and here's the truth. And this is kind of a trope that I didn't mention, but bad things happen when you don't let people go. And
Yeah.
like people have to move on. And it's kind of like a common trope where like spirits sometimes do things that are part of that person's personality, but a little warped. And, a lot of those stories are always because the person has to move on. And that's why I was also so disappointed in episode 9, because I wanted to see Peter get some kind of comeuppance. I wanted to see him really get something to make him understand the bad that he's done. Instead, we just get a, I'm so sorry, Miles. And then he just fades away. And I'm like, man, you gave me all this with him, though. You gave me all this. So, yeah, I would try and save, Rebecca. And even if I couldn't, even if Rebecca still died, let's say she gets killed by the lady in the lake or something like that, I would basically be, and how cool would this have been if the lady in the lake was like evil, but Peter and Rebecca were trying to work to undo what the lady in the lake was doing. Like they were always trying to like do something and possess the children to try and like subvert what the lady in the lake was trying to do. That would have been a cool idea, but let's move on past. That's just what I would do. So let's keep it brief here, gents. But favorite scene, if you got one, an episode, if you got one, or character, if you got one. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this kickoff here. Favorite character, certainly Peter. Does he have some rather deplorable things that he does by the end of the series? Absolutely. But first off, I definitely think that there are certain elements to Peter, namely the rough upbringing, that kind of thing, and like just fighting against a ceiling and people thinking you're a monster. I can relate. So I liked Peter. I like the character. I don't like the things he does, but I like the way his character was portrayed. Favorite episode? Probably episode 2, where Miles basically really fucks up a bird just so he can go back home to help his sister. Like, it's a really cool scene, and this is my favorite scene as well, where they tell him to apologize for like disemboweling a pigeon or something. And then he's like, I'm sorry I didn't do worse. And I was like, oh shit. And at first you think he's just like a demented little blighter. But then you see that he did it because of the message from his sister telling him to come back home. So that's for me. Dan, how about you?
My favorite scene, I think, was when the lady in the lake kills Peter. I really fucked with that scene because I really liked the lady in the lake just being some like unmovable, unstoppable, unknown force. And Peter is like in the hallway at night, and you're not like, the kids tell people you have to stay in your room at night because they know the lady in the lake walks around at night. So they're like, everyone has to stay in their room. So Peter is getting out of his room to go steal something. So he's out, and then like the two kids see him, and then the lady of the lake just like walks in the hallway, and he just like happens to be in her way.
Third.
Yeah. I mean, like, she's not malevolent. She's not, I wouldn't even say she's evil or anything. It's just like, he just happens to be in her way, and she just like grabs him and just like chokes him out in like half a second and just like drags his body into the room with her. All the while, she doesn't miss a beat. She just keeps going. And I loved that, just that, again, like unknowable, unmovable force that she was, which is part of the reason why I was so disappointed when we got such a big backstory on her. Like, I didn't particularly want that. I just wanted her to just be a badass, you know? So that was my favorite scene. Favorite character, I think, was Hannah Gross, the housekeeper. I just thought she had a really cool character, and she had like a sense of duty to the house to, you know, care for the house and the people in it and everything. This sound kind of weird, but I also really fuck with her style, like her outfits and everything. I thought were pretty fucking dope.
She was also bad as fuck, let's be real.
She was fit.
You could say she was fit. Yeah. I don't really have a favorite episode. I didn't really think about it in terms of this happened this episode and that kind of thing. So I don't really have a favorite episode.
All right. Nico, how about you?
My favorite episode has gotta be episode 8. I just adore it for everything that it is. My favorite characters, oh man, I think I gotta go with Jamie and Owen. Owen's such a good dude. I fucking love that guy. Just really, just good fucking guy. And my favorite scene, I think, is in the first episode when Flora is looking over Danny's shoulder, and at that point we don't know why, and it's just super fucking chilling. You'll know what I mean when you see it, but it's at the end. It looks like she's talking into nothingness.
All right. So let's go ahead now. We talked about our favorite. Let's talk about our least favorite. And to be honest, I feel like I've kind of aired most of my criticisms actually throughout this podcast.
I fucking hope so.
I really don't have too much more to say outside of probably what I'll say a little piece of my wrap up. So I'll pass on this. Dan, how about you? Have you really vented your steam?
For the most part, I think, yeah, we've already talked about most of it. Also, to me, I don't know if you've ever had like a meal or something that was like so close to being really good, but it wasn't quite really good. And because it was so close, you like dislike it more, if that makes sense.
I know what you're talking
that frustrated.
about.
That's how I feel. Because like, I feel like this show is almost really good, but there are just like a few things that bothered me about it that in other shows wouldn't necessarily have bothered me. But because this was so close, it bothered me more. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we've already talked about a lot of the stuff.
All right. And Nico, how about you?
I think I do understand. I think if they were a little bit more clear that this wasn't going to be just because riding on the coattails of Hill House, which like go fucking watch Hill House if you haven't. So goddamn good. Justin. I think they could have perhaps made it a little bit more clear that it was more of a drama, but that's the only thing that I can think of.
So I actually have a question about that. And you kind of brought it up earlier that the show is self-aware that it's not a horror.
Not entirely.
At the end, the last episode, when we kind of skip back into the narrator's present time, Jamie's present time, one of the characters there says, "Oh, that's a great story, but you got one thing wrong. You said that this was a ghost story. This is actually a love story."
That.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She says, "This is actually a love story." So that told me that the show knows what they were doing. And that actually got me kind of mad because that tells me that the marketing people, everyone involved in the show, purposely marketed the show as a horror, knowing full well
100%.
it was not a horror or straight up horror. That was a drama, it was a love story.
100%.
Which for me kind of makes me mad because the first like 4 or 5 episodes, I was waiting for horror. And I didn't like it very much because it wasn't horror. And I kept waiting for these buildups to pay off and for horrific things to happen, and they never did. And then maybe episode 4 or 5 is when I realized this isn't a horror, this is a drama. And once I realized that, my mindset shifted and I liked the show a lot more after I realized that. So I feel like if I was told at the beginning, going into it, hey, this isn't horror, Like, yeah, there's horror elements, of course, but if I was told that up front, I think I would have enjoyed it even more. And I find it
I can see
almost insulting that the show knew that they were tricking me. And I feel like that's, in my opinion, only detrimental.
that. That's fair.
Agreed. I was just like Dan. I followed that same curve. And then when episodes 8 and 9 hit, I kind of flatlined. So let's go ahead now and take it to the critical review. So this is sitting at an 88% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 62% from the audience who perhaps were like Dan and a little angered. So let's go ahead now and take it to you, Nico. Where would you put this on a scale from 1 to 100?
Oh man, you would think that I would have put some thought into this before this exact moment, but I haven't. I think I'm gonna give this a 95.
Wow.
Wow. High
Yeah.
praise. Dan, where would you put this?
I would put it at, I think, an 80. I think if I
It's higher than I expected.
I think if I rewatch it later, I think would give it like a 85. But this time I think I'd give it an 80.
All right. I give it a 65. I think this is an unfocused project at times. I think that, truthfully, if this appeals to a very specific individual, I think, and
I wonder who you're talking about.
well, no. I mean, like, generally speaking, I think
okay.
this appeals to a very specific kind of person. I myself am not the biggest fan of period pieces or dramas in that vein, but I still opened up my mind. I still really attempted to enjoy it, and I think I gave it a fair shot.
You did.
I think that it's just, for me, there was too much that didn't make sense, too much over-explaining at times, and just certain things like Peter's plan, which I could go into detail about why it didn't make much sense to me, but there's just a lot of the puzzle pieces were here, but the picture that they put together wasn't the one that was on the box to me, if I'm going to use a metaphor. So I'm going to sit it at a 65% for me. So let's go ahead now and, well, would you recommend this one to a friend? Nico?
In a heartbeat. But I would tell them that it's not as horror as it was made out to be.
Dan?
I think I would, yes.
That makes me happy.
I'm going to have to take the pass on this one and say no. I wouldn't recommend this one to a friend. As such, I will also not be awarding this the Golden Seal of Approval.
I would
so
have.
This episode is going to get that miss from me, but Nico said he would have. Dan, would you have given this the Golden Seal of
No,
Approval?
definitely not.
All right, then. So that's been it from us here at Don't Open That Door. But if you like what you've heard, please go ahead and give us a follow. We're on Twitter at DOTD Horror. We're on Instagram under the same name. That's at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't Open That Door. We hope everybody, as the days get darker and colder, that you keep yourselves safe, bundle up tight, and please, ladies and gents, don't open that door. Bye.